The winter of 2026. It was supposed to be the end. You know, the frozen, static conclusion to a brutal war. Seriously, every major analyst, from the Pentagon all the way to the Kremlin, was predicting a war of attrition, one that would just bleed Ukraine dry. That narrative was practically set in stone. But that narrative has just been shattered. What we're watching unfold right now isn't a stalemate. It's a massive, completely unexpected turning point. And it's happening way faster than anyone thought possible.
Yeah, this was the consensus, and the thinking behind it was brutally simple. After the insane fighting of 2024 and 25, Ukraine's stockpiles were getting low. So a static, frozen front line, well, that would favor Russia's immense reserves of manpower and gear. The plan was to just grind Ukraine's forces down through the winter, and then get ready for a final, decisive push in the spring. Kyiv was expected to hold on, sure, but advance? No way. The world was just bracing for a long, grim winter of stalemate. But as the snow started to melt, the world didn't see a Russian breakthrough. It saw a Russian crumble. In just the last 6 weeks, the armed forces of Ukraine have liberated 460 square kilometers of their own land. And look, this isn't some minor tweak of the front line. This is a seismic shift. It's been confirmed by the Institute for the Study of War, by international reporters, and by President Zelensky himself. For the first time since 2023, the momentum has swung, and it has swung decisively back to Kyiv. Stay till the end because some shocking things I am going to reveal in this explainer. Let's get back to it. So, what does all this mean? Well, this isn't just some tactical victory, it's a geographical earthquake. Taking back this much territory has completely derailed Moscow's carefully laid plans for their big spring-summer 2026 offensive. The staging grounds they needed, the supply lines they were setting up, it's all been thrown into chaos. So we're going to break down exactly how Ukraine managed to turn what was supposed to be a defensive slog into a stunning offensive win. To really understand how this happened, we have to zoom in, right down to a specific point on the map, the junction of 3 regions, Dnipropetrovsk, Donetsk, and Zaporizhia. For over a year, this sector was an infamous meat grinder, a place where you measured gains in meters, not kilometers. But in February 2026, Ukrainian commanders spotted it, a fatal flaw in the Russian defensive architecture, right here. And they turned this crucible of attrition into the very epicenter of their breakthrough. These 3 things worked together like a combination lock, and they just unlocked the entire Russian front. First, a coordinated electronic attack caused a total communications blackout for Russian units using Starlink, basically rendering their artillery blind. Second, with the weather finally on their side, Ukraine unleashed its mass drone doctrine. And we're not talking single drone strikes here. We're talking saturation waves of FPV drones that cleared out entire trench lines. And third, with the path cleared, Ukraine's brand new air assault brigades, fresh from NATO training, executed high-mobility encirclement tactics, punching straight through and collapsing the Russian lines from the inside out. And this table just illustrates the results brilliantly. Over 400 square kilometers were liberated along the Dnipropetrovsk border, pushing Russian forces out of the region for the first time in years. At the Alexandrovka junction itself, another 35 square kilometers were retaken, restoring a critical defensive anchor for the whole southern front. And then further south, near Huliai Pole, another 25 square kilometers were seized, a move that directly messes with Russian rail logistics heading toward Crimea. Every single gain had a purpose far beyond just the land itself. But here's the thing, Moscow's response to losing ground has always been to escalate in the sky. So as Ukrainian soldiers are advancing, a new and absolutely terrifying shadow is falling over the cities behind them. Russia has just unveiled its latest weapon of terror, a weapon designed specifically for the new realities of this war. For months, this name was just a ghost in intelligence briefings. You know, a rumored next-gen cruise missile. Well, it's not a ghost anymore. After a devastating strike on a residential building in Kharkiv that killed 10 civilians, the wreckage told its own story. The Izdalia 30 is real, and it's here. All right, let's break down what this thing actually is. It's not a hypersonic weapon. It uses a compact turbojet engine, which gives it a subsonic speed of around 720 kilometers per hour. Now that might not sound fast, but it makes it harder to detect on radar than a ballistic missile, letting it fly low and hug the terrain all the way to its target. And here is the most terrifying part, its purpose. The warhead is explicitly designed for something they're calling structure leveling. This isn't a weapon for hitting a military vehicle or a command post with surgical precision. Oh no, This is a weapon designed to collapse an entire apartment building, to destroy a power station, to flatten critical infrastructure. The sheer destructive power they've packed into this thing is just crucial to understand. It carries an 800-kilogram warhead. To put that into perspective for you, that is nearly double the payload of Russia's workhorse KO-101 cruise missile. It represents a quantum leap in the destructive power Russia can launch from a safe distance. And it's not just powerful, it's smart. It uses a hybrid guidance system. Inertial navigation gets it to the general area of the target, and then a highly jam-resistant satellite receiver takes over for the final approach. That combination makes it incredibly difficult for electronic warfare systems to knock it off course, making sure that 800-kilogram warhead gets exactly where it's going.
Now, this comparison, it paints a really clear picture of Russia's new strategy. The Izdeliye-30 has almost double the payload and a much more resilient guidance system than the older K-101. But the most critical difference, the real game changer, is that last row, production. The K-101 is complex and expensive to build, especially under sanctions. The Izdeliye-30, on the other hand, is reportedly simpler and cheaper. It's designed for mass production in a wartime economy. This is Russia's answer to sanctions.
And here it is, the shocking proof that Russia's war machine is still very much connected to the global economy. Analysis of the missile debris from that Kharkiv strike found components sourced from the United States, Switzerland, and China. And just look at the date. These weren't old parts from some dusty stockpile. These components were made as recently as late 2025. Despite years of sanctions, Russia's tech lifelines are still wide open. So this new missile, it's the spearhead of a wider, escalating war in the sky. For every single kilometer that Ukrainian troops gain on the ground, the cities in the rear face an increasingly intense and sophisticated aerial bombardment. This is the new, brutal calculus of this conflict. Let's just look at the data from last night. Russia launched a barrage of 99 drones. Ukrainian air defenses, bolstered by the latest Western systems, had a pretty remarkable night. They managed to shoot down 90 of them. That's a 91% success rate. And on the surface, that sounds incredible, right? A real testament to the skill and the technology protecting Ukraine's skies. But here's the tough question we have to ask ourselves. In this new phase of the war, is a 91% success rate actually a success? When you're facing nightly barrages of 100 drones and missiles, well, the 9 that get through can still cause absolutely catastrophic damage. The whole math of attrition has shifted from the ground to the air. Because those drones that get through, they aren't just lucky shots. They serve a dual purpose. They're being used to map the gaps and the blind spots in Ukraine's air defense network. They find the holes. And once those holes are identified, that's when the heavy hitters come in, the glide bombs. Launched from jets 50 kilometers away, these massive bombs fly under the radar, striking cities like Slavyansk and Sumy with just devastating effect. The drones are basically the scouts for a much, much deadlier follow-on attack.
And you really can't understand this escalating dynamic without zooming way out, because the war in Ukraine isn't happening in a vacuum. As of March 2026, the world is on fire. The US-Israeli strike on Iran, dubbed Operation Epic Fury, has pulled global attention and resources toward the Middle East, creating a second major crisis that is directly impacting the battlefield in Europe. This slide really lays out the global standoff. On one side, you have the Kremlin's big gamble. They are banking on Western fatigue, believing that if Washington gets bogged down in a hot war with Tehran, the flow of advanced weapons like Patriot missiles to Kyiv will slow to a trickle. On the other side is the West counter-strategy. This Pax Silica alliance, linking the US, India, and European allies, is trying to create a secure supply chain for critical tech to try and outproduce this global crisis. It's a production war, but on a global scale. Which brings us right back to today, and to a critical race against time. Ukraine has the momentum on the ground. It has shattered the Russian winter offensive. But Russia is adapting, evolving its aerial terror campaign with weapons like the Izdeliye-30. As we head into April, the entire conflict is balanced on a knife's edge. So the final question is this. Is that 460 square kilometer breakthrough a sign that the Russian front is actually on the verge of collapse? Or is the debut of the Izdeliye-30 and this relentless air campaign the beginning of a new, even more brutal phase of the war? Ukraine has proven it can win on the ground, but now it has to win the race in the sky, all while the world is distracted by another fire. So what do you think happens next? Is a collapse imminent? Or is this war just entering a deadlier phase? Let us know what you think down in the comments. If you found this analysis valuable, make sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the changing dynamics of global conflicts. Our next explainer is going to look at the Golden Dome defense system and the latest developments from Operation Epic Fury. Thanks for watching.